Good morning, beautiful people. How are you? Today, I have such an inspiring guest. I am very excited to welcome Dr. Maria Rothenburger with me today. Good morning.
Hello, it's good afternoon where I am.
I know this
Good
time difference is
morning.
crazy, isn't it? I was like, what day of the
Yes,
week it is? What time zone are we in?
I
Thank
know. What's my name even? I don't know.
you. Exactly. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to share your bio with the audience. I cannot do it justice because it made me laugh, so I'm just going to read it to people as it stands. So, as a fellow fertility friend, Dr. Maria Rothenberger uses a combination of grounded scientific strategies and mystical spiritual tools to help people who are struggling to build their family. For the last 17 years, she has helped people to move from brokenhearted, frustrated, and stuck to open, connected, and peaceful. I love that. She is the #1 best-selling author of Transcending Infertility, 9 Keys for Improving Fertility, Creating Miracles, and Being a Better Human, and is the host for the weekly Miracles Happen Fertility podcast. Maria lives in Oregon, USA, with her husband and 6 kids, 2 humans, 3 canines, and a cat who doesn't like her very much. Welcome, Maria. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Hey, thanks so much, Sarah. I really appreciate the invite.
I would love for you to share with us your fertility story. That's where it all began. So if you're happy to do that, I'd love to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you the shortened version because it was 6.5 years of crazy ups and downs, and mostly downs, frankly.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so my husband and I got married when I was 29, and we decided to wait a year and then try to conceive. I had been told from the age of, I don't know, 12, that if you have premarital sex, you will get pregnant. And so I thought,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah, I'm going to stop the pill. I'm going to get pregnant immediately. And I actually did. That is where the story really begins. So I got pregnant. I took one of those home tests that said, pregnant. It was actually it was one of those word ones.
Oh, okay.
And yep. But because I was obsessive, I took another one, and that one said not pregnant. So then I took another one and another one and another one. And I think, I don't know, 5 or 6 total. And the rest were all negative. So I was perplexed and went to my gynecologist, and he said, oh, you probably just had a chemical, quote unquote. I do not like that phrase.
Yes,
You probably
yes.
just had a chemical pregnancy. Try again, you'll be fine. Well, we tried again and tried again for another year, and nothing happened. And so I went to a different gynecologist who said he would put me on Clomid. I'd be fine. I'll be pregnant in 6 months. Well, none of that happened. And Clomid made me absolutely insane. Absolutely. Not only did it make me insane, I went back to that doctor and said nothing happened. He increased the dose. So
Okay. Okay.
Clomid and my body do not go well together. I was depressed and anxious. I reached the point of total darkness, suicidality. I did not want to live anymore. My relationship was not good. We were about to divorce, really.
Okay.
So about 5 years into the fertility process, we were knocking on divorce's door. Before that, we had done IUIs, we had done IVF, we had done traditional Chinese medicine, we had done all the things, all of them. Short of traveling to some foreign country to pray to a fertility god or something. We didn't do that, but I would have.
Absolutely. I understand. Yes.
Yes, because I was obsessed. But we obviously, somewhere in our insanity, we were sane enough to realize that we needed to not try to build our family anymore. We needed to work on us, ourselves individually and us together. And so we took about a year to do that. There was no game plan, really. It was just, we're starting today and we'll see what happens. During that time, my work for myself was coming out of the bitterness, out of the darkness, not killing myself. It's a very serious thing, right? I started therapy myself. I probably should have been on medicine, but I didn't choose to go that route for whatever reason. The meditation is it is the most important tool that I used to bring myself back to myself, really. And honestly, I started meditation not believing that it was going to be useful in any way. I started meditation because nothing else had worked, and I was bitter and angry, and I was going to prove it wrong.
That's the scientist in you.
Yep. I was going to prove meditation does not work for everybody. Here we go. Well, after about 30 days of meditating my goal was to meditate most days a week for 30 minutes. And I did that, my little scientific self. And after about 30 days of that, I started feeling a little less edgy, like things didn't irritate me as much. After 90 days, here was my test. I lived in New Jersey at the time, New Jersey, USA. If you know New Jersey at all, you know that people have really bad attitudes there. And drivers are awful. They have no problem cutting you off, flipping you the bird, whatever. They have no problem with that, cursing at you out the window. And I was driving on the highway and somebody cut me off. And my immediate response was, "Ooh, I hope they're okay." And I went,
okay.
Who the heck am I? I would have never said that, thought that, wondered that. I would have never gone there energetically or thought-wise in the previous 90 days. The only thing that I could attribute that to really was the meditation. That's really the only thing that I was doing different. The therapy came after. I started doing therapy after that. We started doing marital counseling after that. So that's the only thing that I could attribute it to. And that's what made me say, okay, there's something to this. Well, the longer that I did it, I came to the realization that I was actually happier than I had ever been. I was actually more grateful than I had ever been. I was more in my life. I was more present in my life. And at that point, this is all written about in Transcending Infertility, but at that point, my dog had died, and my dog to me was my child, like I wrote about in my bio, right? They're my kids.
Yes.
He was way too young to die. He died way too early, and that rocked my boat so bad. And that is when I thought, oh my God, fertility stuff has taken everything from me. I was not present with him. I didn't live with him while he was alive. I missed out on so much because I was in my head and swirling in this darkness for so much. And that's when truly I opened up to this possibility that things could actually be okay. Not only that, I was becoming a better human. This is why I write about that in the book, because I realized, here's the scientific term, I was experiencing post-traumatic growth, not post-traumatic stress, although I was experiencing post-traumatic stress, not the disorder, but stress. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. I was also experiencing post-traumatic growth, which means I was spiritually better. My relationships were better. I was more compassionate toward myself. I was living mindfully. I was very present. There were so many things that were better about my life because of infertility, that I had to just do my doctoral research on it. So come to find out, this was before we had children. Come to find out, this is a thing. I didn't know that this was post-traumatic growth. I was perplexed. I didn't know what was happening to me. Why am I better? I don't understand why I'm better after infertility, and I don't even have a baby yet. And so I started doing the research, and it became my dissertation. It turns out that the research that I did was around personality characteristics and the possibility of post-traumatic growth. And the things that turned out to be connected to the possibility of post-traumatic growth, or things that I just have as a personality, except for extroversion. Extroversion is associated with post-traumatic growth, but I'm very introverted. So that was not something that I had. But I realized, okay, this is a thing. Not only that, trauma has within it a seed to actually change personality. You know, researchers decades ago would say, no, you're born with your personality, it can't change. Not true. Trauma can absolutely change your personality characteristics, or anything big and jarring. And so those things had changed in me, and I began living like a new human, a better person, a better version of myself. My marriage we're almost 19 years now, and we are like way more in love now than we've ever been. He still like annoys me.
Of course.
But he's great. I mean, I'm perfect, just so you know. But
yes.
Yeah. No. Not really. But we are stronger than ever. We did a final a final transfer, an FET, for a frozen embryo transfer. And that's the only time that I got pregnant from treatment, and sadly miscarried as well, that pregnancy. And instead of months of darkness and grief, I grieved for a solid 24 hours, and then I was done. I was free. My brain was so much more resilient. I was joyful, happy about life again. And I walked down the stairs of my little Cape Cod house and swept all of the drugs and the needles and the garbage, which is totally illegal, but I didn't care. And I claimed myself, I claimed my freedom. And that day, I had a conversation with my husband around moving forward child-free. We just weren't going to have kids, and he was fine with that. I'm like, this is so great. We'll have like 20 dogs and like acreage, and we'll just travel. And I was so excited about the possibility of what life could look like. And a couple of weeks later, he was like, you know, I need to be a dad. I really do. And because I was in such this Zen, go with the flow place, I'm like, cool, let's do it. So we began researching adoption, and that's a whole nother story, and a miraculous one at that. It's also in the book. And that's how we resolved our fertility issues well before we became parents, or at least I did. And then we began parenthood after, when we were joyful and better versions of ourselves. And now we have 2 boys born in South Korea, and all the animals that I mentioned.
All the things.
Yes. That's it in a nutshell. It's a lot.
Wow. Yes.
Most
yes.
are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing so vulnerably about, going into the darkness and your relationship breakdown. And those are things that we don't necessarily talk about.
Oh, I do. Definitely.
But so many people experience this. And this is the reason that I do this podcast, is because I want to shine a light on infertility and pregnancy loss, and what we go through as human beings to try to complete our family and to break the silence surrounding it. So thank you for for being a part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important too, because you're right, so many people experience that, not enough people talk about it. And that's why I'm so open about those things, marital challenges and deep dark depression. And I think it's really important to talk about. I mean, I'm also biased because I'm a mental health therapist, but I think it's extremely important to highlight. Yeah.
One thing, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and there was a lady that had also been struggling with infertility for many, many years. And she's since had a little girl, and she's sort of at the end of that journey, but she was reflecting on her journey and had said at no point was counseling or therapy ever suggested to her when she was going through her 6 years of IVF. Is that something that was recommended to you?
No, it wasn't ever. I do believe that is changing. I've several people have come to me, not because therapy was mandated, but it was really strongly suggested from their care provider. So I'm crossing fingers that that is that is changing. But no, it was never recommended to me. It's such a shame. It
Yeah,
needs to be.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because it was something that was never suggested to me either. So I just wanted to sort of put it out there that for whoever's listening, if you're going through this journey, then please don't be afraid to go and ask for help. I think it is so very, very important to seek that help.
It is. And what I found with folks who are struggling with fertility, and this is another study that I want to do. I feel like the vast majority tend to be go-getters, like a type A, like, let me do the things, let me organize, let me get all the things done. And so when folks come to me for therapy, they are already in that mode, like, I have done everything and I don't like being in this vulnerable position of telling you all my darkness and hard stuff. I want to be able to fix it on my own. So they'll come to me in that place. And it's a really courageous thing to go to therapy when you feel like you have all the answers and you can fix anything. To ask for support is really courageous. So hone in on that courageousness and go get help when you know that it's not enough on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So can I just delve in a little bit into the adoption story?
Totally.
Because I know that then leads into sort of more of what you're doing now and your spiritual side, which I absolutely want to talk about as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so when we applied for adoption, it was when people say, oh, I feel like I'm going to start all over again if we go the adoption route, they're right. They're right. It is a whole new journey that it's a roller coaster. So manage your expectations and harness your energy. Really take care of yourself. So there were a lot of ups and downs, but I was in such a resilient Zen space that I think that I handled it really well. We there's a whole lot to say about it, but how it culminated was we the final sort of magical mystical piece is that through all of these agencies and all these guidelines and things for being a good adoptive candidate, adoptive parent candidate, we finally landed on an agency that was magical in and of itself. But we landed on an agency and we decided to go to adopt through South Korea. And we chose them because of their excellent foster care system and their medical care of infants. But at the final hour, at the 11th hour, we were told, oh, Korea has changed their guidelines and you don't fit that anymore. So we need to either wait, we need to be in a holding pattern until things change potentially, or we need to switch programs to China or a different program. So the rug was pulled out from underneath me. I was a crying heap on the floor, very, very infertility triggered. But again, contrary to back then, because I had done all this work on myself, it took about 24 hours before I was like, okay, well, that's happening and let's create a plan around this. Now, the whole time we decided to move forward with the China program, the whole time my intuition is screaming at me, no, your kid's in Korea. Your son is in Korea. But I'm still doing the things to like appease the adoption agency. Okay, I'll do all this extra paperwork. We'll move forward with this. And one day I was driving to my office. I should preface this by saying I was really into, these intuitive hits like signs. So I would look for signs all the time for that we were on the right track. And long story short, the number 317 became really significant to me. There's a whole story behind that. So 317, very significant. And on the way to my office, I'm driving and I noticed I had passed it hundreds of times before. I worked there for a couple of years. I passed by this corner and I realized, oh my gosh, there's a Korean church right there. I never noticed that. I noticed the Hangul, the letters on the sign outside. I was, oh my gosh, that's Korean. And then I looked at the address of the church, the mailbox, 317. And I'm like, oh, this is my sign
Yes.
that my son is in Korea. And we could only adopt a boy from South Korea at the time. They weren't adopting out girls. So I knew my son was in Korea, and I still kept doing the China things, but I knew my son was in Korea. So that was in April that year. And in May, I was hiking out with the dogs and I got a phone call from the agency. And she said, are you sitting? And I went, oh no, we have to change programs again, or what's going on? I was like, I'm not, but I will. I'll find a rock. So I sat down and she said, this crazy thing happened where a little Korean boy was adopted by another family 1 hour from us. And they decided not to finalize the adoption, not because there were any issues with the child, but because they realized we are not meant to be parents. And would you like a baby? You need to decide in 24 hours, and you need to take custody within 48. This was 1 month later, after we were told we had to switch programs, 1 month later. And so clearly we decided to go for it amidst a whole other like crazy, oh my gosh, what are we doing story. We decided to go for it. And that young man is now 12 years old and happily in our family. And a similar story happened. This is why I really encourage folks to pay attention to their intuition, right? Because I intuitively knew my son was in South Korea, that we were not going to be adopting through China. And a similar thing happened with our second son. We wanted to adopt again, and we were looking to adopt domestically this time to save a little money, because adopting overseas is very expensive. And I just was holding back. I didn't know. We did all the classes that we needed to do. We were going to adopt through the foster care system. It was the same agency that we used for the overseas adoption. And I just held off for a good 6 or 8 months, because I just felt intuitively that it would be better if we adopted another Korean baby, another Korean boy, so that our two kids could have this shared cultural background. And none of the children through foster care were likely to be Korean. So I just held off for a little bit. And then I got a call from the agency. Hey, can you talk? And they had another situation like that. A little bit tougher this time. Our second son had been adopted, fully finalized, and he had been living in this home for a year. I won't go into the whole story because it's his personal story, but here we were in a similar situation. He was adopted from Korea. I had an intuitive knowing that we needed to adopt another Korean boy, and here was another opportunity that matched my intuition. I just knew. And had we pursued another adoption before that, this probably wouldn't have happened. So here we are, family of 4, and our 2 kiddos are boys from South Korea, and it's miraculous. It's miraculous how this happened. And there was just an intuitive knowing. And you're right, this led into and other things led into what I do now. So yeah, anything else you want to know about adoption? I could talk forever.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to you for about 20 hours. There's just so many things that I want to ask, but firstly, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm super happy for you. I know that journey is tough, and well done on embracing it and just following your intuition and following that inner wisdom and that guidance, because I know we get lost on the physical journey through infertility. And you know, the work that we both do is about coming back to self, isn't it? And about following your intuitive guidance, listening to your heart. The answers are all inside. And when we do that, then we can move forward with a lot more ease and grace, despite what's going on outside of us, so to speak. Yes. So I would love to hear more about your intuitive journey and the work that you are doing now?
Sure. Well, so the work that I do now is firmly based in well, it's both. I am still left brain sciencey. I like evidence. I like to research things, but I became very connected to this other side, this literally the spiritual side, mediumship, talking to the other side, connecting with souls on the other side, but not because I was going there. It happened spontaneously. Actually, I was after I resolved my fertility issues, I began specializing in fertility issues as a therapist, as a counselor. And I was working with somebody who had lost, unfortunately, her twins pretty late in pregnancy. So we were working with some pretty hard grief symptoms. And spontaneously, her babies came to me in a session. Now, I was very sciencey back then. I did not believe that this was real. I thought that I was psychotic, actually. Something's wrong with my brain and I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I was very anxious, very scared. I didn't understand this, but it was so clear that they were present and I just ignored it. And I finished the session. I ignored them. La, 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 la. You're not here. They're talking to me, especially one of them, very verbal. And they started doing things in my physical space that I couldn't explain other than they're telling me they're doing this. And then it happens. So for example, I'm in my car. I was playing one of my favorite podcasts, and who happens to be a psychic medium. I just like her style. She's very practical. And so I was listening to her podcast, and it was flipping back and forth from one episode to the other. And it landed on one that said, "Get over yourself." She just said, "Get over yourself." And I went, what is going on? For the next 2 weeks, these babies messed with things in my house. They were moving things, knocking things over. I was like, what is going on? I don't understand this. And then I ended up calling that podcast host on her live show. And I said, what is going on? I don't understand. I'm freaked out. And then she had a very sciencey explanation, which helped me.
Okay,
she said 2 things that were important. One, I began a meditation practice a couple of years or a few years before that. That likely helped open up my connection to the other side. 2, I likely have this somewhere in my family. And I went, okay, well, I definitely know one. I was meditating. So I asked my parents separately because they were divorced when I was a little one. And they both said, oh yeah, that's a thing in our family. I was like, what? Why has nobody ever said anything about this? So that's when I got curious and I started, I don't know, exploring, but not seriously, psychic phenomena and psychic mediumship. It took me a solid 8 years before I decided, okay, I think I'm going to do this. And then I got specific spirit baby mediumship training and hung my shingle for spirit baby mediumship. And that has completely exploded. People are so hungry for that information. But the way that I work, and I hope that most ethical mediums work this way or psychics work this way, that they empower you to do it yourself. Like everybody has an intuitive knowing. Not everybody is going to be like the equivalent of like Bach on the piano or, you know, a superstar guitar player or something, but we all have some, like I can plunk out a few strings on the guitar, but I'm no Jimi Hendrix, right? Like everybody has an intuitive knowing, an intuitive connection. Maybe you won't be a psychic medium. That's okay. But I love to teach people and empower people to connect on their own. So even in a spirit baby session, I'm saying, hey, here's how your baby would like to connect. Practice this on your own. You don't need a medium. You need to just trust and begin the practice. So it's been a wild ride. And this is July will be the 3rd year that I'm doing spirit baby mediumship. And it's probably one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my career, more than psychotherapy. It's amazing and I love it.
Yeah, I can imagine. For those people who don't know exactly what spirit baby means, can you just
Yes.
explain that term for us?
Yeah. Spirit babies are souls who have either attempted to come through before, or they are attempting to come through Earthside. So they are souls. There's a movie actually that came out recently by Disney. It's called Soul. And when I watched that movie, I was like, oh my gosh, that's who I talk to. That's who I talk to. There are all the souls waiting. They're looking down at the earth and waiting for the right time or the right opportunity to like fly down into a human body. So it's its own, I don't know, vibration or plane of existence. It's separate from other realms that I connect to, like the angel realm is different, ancestor realm is different than spirit baby realm. Spirit baby realm is very high vibration, very pure, all love. It's just all nothing but love. And so when I connect to the spirit baby realm, I will be able to connect with babies who have, again, attempted to come through before and resulted in like a miscarriage or abortion, or babies who have never tried to come through. They just want to come through now, and they're telling you how to communicate with them, or they're giving you different messages, or you can ask whatever questions you have of them. The most notable questions that people ask are, when are you coming and how? Tell me
Yes.
when, how, which is difficult to answer in a spirit baby session, but that's what spirit baby communication is. It's these souls who are waiting to be born again, or who want to communicate because they've tried to come through before, and either they're going to try again or their work is done. It just depends on the individual.
Oh, beautiful. So I can imagine that those sessions must be really healing.
Yeah, and in this, I don't know how it is there, but in the States, I can't call it healing legally. Um,
Okay. Yep.
it's for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, sure.
But honestly, I have seen immense healing from those sessions. Healing that I think goes beyond even a traditional psychotherapy experience. Not that I'm dismissing psychotherapy. Obviously, I'm a little biased there. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. I just don't think it's everything. I think
Mm.
that it's a part of a beautiful package. You know, physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness. It's all part of the package of being a beautiful, wonderful, functioning human. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I went to see a psychic medium show years ago, and he was able to connect with I've got 3 spirit babies, so he was able to connect in with those. And the people that were stood around listening to this conversation were just like, like totally, like totally dumbstruck and like, oh wow. And
Yes.
even just knowing that he'd got the right number
Yep.
for me. And even though I was on that sort of intuitive journey and that connecting with the other side and all the things, I was
Yes.
still, when it happens to you personally, you're still a little bit blown away, aren't you? So
Oh, totally.
so I like the fact
Yeah.
that you talk about signs and how there are signs in the universe for us. So can you share a little bit about signs and how they work and what to look out for and what they could look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually laughing because this totally just happened to me. I created the Miracles Happen community on a Mighty Networks app, and it's all we talk about all this stuff all the time. And I posted in there recently, oh, I don't know, a couple months ago, that it's just in a place where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Now, when I started doing mediumship training, I was training just for general mediumship. There was a practice that we did, and a medium there said to me, your grandmother's here and she says that you're going to be doing this work. Well, I bust out laughing. I'm like, there's no way. I'm just doing this for fun, man. There is no way I'm going to do this for work. Well, your grandmother's saying that you are. And I'm like, no. Well, she was right. And my grandmother was 4'10", but like feisty. as all get out. She was this tiny woman that you just didn't cross. And so I felt like she was bossing me, like telling me, oh, yes, you are going to be doing this work. And so the thing that I posted in the community was that I had been questioning, am I on the right path? Grandma, can you let me know that you're actually there and that I'm on the right path? Well, her name is Paula. And over the next week or so, I saw 3 references to Paula Abdul. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I said, Grandma, can you give me something else besides Paula Abdul? I'm just not sure. So that day I get a text, and this was during like our political stuff here in November. I got a text from some kind of political something, and it was from a gentleman named Paul. And I went, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I'm like, of course it was.
I'm like, now you're gonna make a joke, Paul. Okay. Grandma, can you give me any other signs besides your name? So that day I saw a commercial for, and I don't watch much TV, but there was a commercial for Chanel No. 5, which happens to be her signature perfume. I'm getting chills right now. I went, okay, all right, thank you. I hear you, and I thank you. But if you want to give me more signs, I'm open. So a couple of days later, I was up in my room, and I don't wear perfume. I don't like it. I just wear like non-scented, unscented things. I was in my room and I smelled a very strong perfume. And I don't know what Chanel No. 5 smells like. I just associated it with her. And I said, thank you. Thank you. If that's you, thank you. And then the final sign, that same day, the perfume day, I was calling for, I was doing some kind of financial transaction, and they needed to go through some security questions to make sure I was who I said I was. And they said, what is your maternal grandmother's first name? And I went, shit. Okay.
You're like, okay, I surrender. I get it. I'm getting the messages.
I surrender. Thank you. So those are examples of what signs can look like. Other people resonate with animals. If they, I once actually had a spirit baby session where the spirit baby was saying, I want to send you a little bunny. And it was very obvious, a little tiny bunny that was brown, like brownish tan, tiny, tiny thing. And that day she sends me a screenshot of her Instagram account where randomly this little baby tiny bunny video shows up in her Instagram feed. It's like, what? How does that happen? But these are how some signs come. And spirit babies they never give up. They're very tenacious. They never give up trying to communicate with you. So I often encourage folks to simply ask for specific things. And okay, so it might not be immediate like that day on your Instagram feed, but give it a good week of openness, being open to, hey, can you send me this particular sign, and be open to it. It may not be like you thought, like in that Instagram example, it wasn't a live bunny like there in a cage or something that she was looking at. It was on her Instagram feed. It could be a commercial like Chanel No. 5. Just be open and look, and it could be a literal sign like the Korean church with the number 317 on the mailbox. That's a literal sign. I saw Korean writing on the sign from the church. But it doesn't have to be that. As long as it is meaningful for the person, then it is likely a sign. Music is another one. Lyrics of a song, a certain particular song, a type of music, that's another thing too.
Yeah, the words that they can come through on the radio are quite apt, aren't they? At times, I know I've experienced that when I'm like, the same thing, just give me a sign when you're starting to doubt yourself. We all doubt ourselves, even if we're on this spiritual journey and we've sort of honed our intuition a little bit more. And then you'll get the lines of a song, and they're exactly what you need to hear, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm listening. You've got me again. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I remember being in a session where people were learning how to ask for signs, and we did this meditation, and we came out of the meditation, and this lady put her hand up and said, "Oh, I just got a scone with jam and cream, like how likely is it that I'm gonna see that sign today?" Because she'd been very specific about, make sure, it was actually with Lisa Williams,
Oh,
make sure,
cool.
yeah, she was over in Melbourne, make sure that you ask for a sort of a time frame. If you're really sort of not sure and you're really wanting to test, then ask for a time frame. And it was really funny because ironically I had a scone with jam and cream in my lunchbox, and I was sat right behind her, and I just tapped her on the shoulder and I said, like, this one. She was just like, she was totally freaked out. The whole room were like, oh, you could, like, a pin could drop. It was so funny. It just made me laugh. For me, it was just like, yeah, matter of fact, but for her, it really meant something. So it was really nice to be able to be part of that sort of little awakening that she was having at the time.
So fabulous. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
can come like that, completely unexpected. I love those times when the signs come completely unexpected. You're just not thinking about it, and then boom, there it is.
Yes. Yeah, for
Amazing.
sure.
Love it.
Yeah. And I love that you actually help people to do this for themselves, so that, and that realization that we are all connected and that we are all in tune, and we just need to reach out and ask. So how can people work with you, and what would a session look like if they're interested in having a communication session?
Yeah, good question. So the way that I work with folks, obviously from my fertility journey, you know that meditation is a massive part of the work that I do. It's in everything that I do. And even when I teach people in an actual training form how to do spirit baby work, day one, it's start meditating right now, right now.
Yes.
So every session starts with a meditation. Now, folks, if you're working directly with me, it's not mandatory that you join. It's really more for me to get my brainwave activity down to theta brainwave state, which is where I'm much more receptive to the other side, where we all are. But most people choose to join. It's quite settling. When you come to a spirit baby session, it's very normal to feel anxious and worried and unsure and excited at the same time. One of the biggest fears that people have is, what if there's no baby? And so to come with that, it can be a little disconcerting. So fortunately, I have a mental health hat too, so I can help settle some nerves, but meditation really helps with that. And also, when I do that meditation, I do a short little body scan, and I'm able to scan folks' energy system to see if there are any, areas that can be worked on there. And then I invite in spirit baby realm. And I also invite in other souls who are connected to spirit babies. So any ancestors or guides or angels, I do ask that they are associated with spirit baby realm. This is interesting. I'm very clear about that boundary. So one time I had a session with somebody whose spirit guide came through, and they were talking about this person's ancestor, a father. Her father had passed away. And the guide said to me, he's here and he wants to talk to you, but I couldn't connect with him. It's because he was not associated with the spirit baby realm at all. And he still wanted to connect with his daughter. So I asked the client permission, and she said, absolutely. And boom, here he was talking. And there was something in her that needed to heal that day from dad, a relationship with dad. And who knows, potentially it is related to her ability to conceive and all that. I don't know. But I'm very clear about that boundary because I want to honor the spirit baby realm and make it about spirit baby, unless the client gives permission otherwise. So I like to cover 3 areas. One, evidence that, because my science brain, evidence that this baby is actually visiting you in your life. They'll tell me about the client's life, what they see changing, what they see as stagnant, whatever. And then I ask if the baby has any messages for their intended parent. And then, of course, the client's able to ask anything that they wish. During the session, I am always also taking notes because I want to leave the person with the notes on how to connect on their own. This is what your baby is saying. Your baby wants you to take walks in that trail that's near your house, near the water. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go there. Your baby wants you to play a certain kind of music. Then you'll feel them. Your baby is very tactile. They want to touch your left arm, or they want to create chills through the body, or whatever it is. So those notes are taken, and I send those notes along with an audio recording of the session to the client, and that is it. That's how it works. It's 90 minutes, and it's packed, just packed with information. There's no break. It's amazing. It goes by like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. That sounds like such a beautiful session. I'm quite excited about that. I might have to book in.
I know. It's so much fun. I also pull in other things like crystals and sometimes oracle or tarot cards. I really am, this is the wrong word, but it feels like that. I'm a slave to the spirit baby realm. Like whatever spirit baby wants, I'm doing it.
Yes.
So sometimes they'll be like, go get this crystal. And so I'll get a crystal. And sometimes I have to set up a crystal grid or whatever it is. I just listen to what they tell me that I need to do. So it's a fun time.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. Yeah, definitely encourage people, if you're intrigued, to book a session with Maria. That sounds very exciting. And I believe that you have an offer for our audience today that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, it's a free ebooklet to start connecting on your own. If you feel like, you want to start like now, you can just go it's 5 ways to start connecting with your spirit baby right now. And it's tips that you can start today to start connecting on your own. I am a firm believer that one does not need a medium. You are the medium, especially with your own baby. The struggle is, and the little mountain to climb is trusting that what you're getting is accurate and real. And so I think the medium's useful for that, to validate. But ultimately, you can choose to do this, and you can.
Yes, I completely concur. And how can people connect with you? What's the best way of booking a session or finding out about the other services that you offer?
Right on my website, drmariarothenberger.com. And burger is spelled Burger, like hamburger. Yeah.
Excellent. You have shared an absolute wealth of information today. I feel like we've just touched the surface of what we could go into in so much more detail, but thank you so much. Have you got any final words of wisdom, anything that you would like to share with the audience, just to help anybody who's struggling with infertility or going through, pregnancy loss, just to help provide some guidance?
Yes. It's really piggybacking on what I just said about trusting yourself. This not only goes for spirit baby communication, but even in the fertility world. If you feel, here's an example. I had a physician that I just felt intuitively was not right. And I moved on. I moved on to a new physician who was amazing and got different results and better results. I just ended up stopping treatment because I knew intuitively that was not right for me anymore. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. I think one of the most disempowering things is infertility. It teaches us that I must not be able to trust that I'm doing the right thing because I have all these things to do and it's not working. And I'm looking up what Dr. Google says and it's not working. And I think that if you were to pare it down to the things that actually feel right to you intuitively, you would be way more on track than you ever imagined. Please trust yourself. Only you know what's best for you.
I completely agree. And I also just want to re-emphasize about meditation. Meditation changed my life. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here without it. That's another big story, which my audience are aware of. And meditation is just so beautiful. What I love about it is that it's free. It's accessible to everybody. It doesn't discriminate between those that can afford to do it and those that can't. We can meditate in nature. We can meditate just before we go into a meeting, just literally closing our eyes and connecting with our breath. So please look into that. Do connect with Maria. Thank you so much for your time. I have learned a lot today. I'm excited. I'm curious about where your journey goes, where my journey goes, and also the audience as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate you.